Be brief. You've had a lot of great speakers this evening. But first, I want to thank somebody here. In 2005, many of you know I resigned from the Office of State Treasurer to return to the United States Marine Corps for an assignment in Iraq. And I got a number of letters from many of you here, but one of the letters I got in the late in 2005 when I was in Fallujah, Iraq. And so I was reading this letter, and it was talking about my wife Cynthia, and that she was campaigning for me around the state, because before I left for the Marine Corps, I had put in the paperwork to run for the Office of Secretary of State. And so obviously she had to take over and do the campaign in my absence. And so they said, you know, your wife Cynthia is just a great campaigner. You know, in fact, she's a better campaigner than you are. And is there any way that you could extend in Iraq past the election? Because I know if you do, you're going to win this race with your wife campaigning for you. So my wife Cynthia, I want to thank you, and if you could stand. You know, in the Congress, our work is really determined, our experience going into the Congress really determines our committee assignments, and our committee assignments really determines the areas that we focus on. And former Congressman Tom Tancredo was a classroom teacher for a while, and then served in the U.S. Department of Education under two presidents. It was on the Education Committee in the Congress, and Cory Gardner comes from a multi-generation farm implement dealership in Yuma, Colorado, but also did energy policy for Senator Allard, and serves today on the Energy and Commerce Committee, where he takes that experience and shapes energy policy for the country. And so I'm blessed with, first of all, being on the Veterans Committee, being the only veteran in the delegation, and the only member of Congress, House and Senate, who served in both the first Gulf War and the Iraq War, and I'm very proud to serve on the committee in a leadership position. I know what it is to come home. The first time I came home with the Marine Corps was in the early 1980s. And I decided I would continue my military career in the reserves, but I wanted to get into the private sector in business, wanted to come home to Colorado. And so I came home from overseas and separated from the Marine Corps, reported in the reserves, and then began looking for a job. And I had a very difficult time. And because in my resume it said I was in the Army Infantry before the Marine Corps Infantry, and then I was an infantry officer in the United States Marine Corps. And so I got turned down by employer after employer saying, you know, you've got a great skill set, but I don't know how it fits into our organization. And so those skills weren't readily transferable to a civilian job. And so I thought for a minute I'd just plus up my resume just a little bit, as people often do. And I put, instead of that, I was an infantry officer in the United States Marine Corps specializing in amphibious warfare. I put that I was in international real estate, specializing in the acquisition of beachfront property. And, you know, that didn't work. So I took my savings from having served overseas with the Marine Corps and put it down on a small business idea, and that idea, after a number of years, became successful. But when I look at our young people coming home today out of the military, a lot of them have families. Well, a lot of them are enlisted. And they don't have that kind of savings, and they need jobs. And so I'm proud to have passed a bill, a bipartisan bill, out of the House of Representatives, now sitting in the Senate, that allows U.S. military service personnel leaving the armed forces to utilize their GI Bill, not just to go to a four-year college, but also to use it towards an apprenticeship program, vocational training program, where the employer will be subsidized with the GI Bill they would have gotten for college to be able to go directly into a job. And I think that we owe that to our men and women coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan. No doubt we've got some problems with the hospital we're building here, and tomorrow I will announce with the ranking member of my Oversight and Investigation Subcommittee of the Veterans Committee that there will be a request for an Inspector General's investigation on the contracting of that practices in that hospital that led to extraordinary cost overruns. The next committee I'm on is Armed Services, and I'm proud again to use my military background to do what other people don't want to do, and that's attack waste in the Pentagon. for every dollar that we waste is a dollar not spent on defending this country. We had Admiral Mike Mullen, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, when he was in that position, testify before the committee. And as all senior flag officers, we always ask them, what do you think is the greatest threat facing America? And we always expect, well, North Korea or Iran attaining nuclear weapons or Al-Qaeda. And he said without hesitation that the greatest threat to the security of the United States of America is our debt, is the mounting debt that this country is facing. He didn't say it was Al-Qaeda, he didn't say it was Iran, he didn't say it was North Korea. I think North Carolina's going to have a very good Senate race. We're going to pick up that Senate seat in North Carolina. I think that's why it's on my mind. But he said the threat was from within. I think the greatest reform that we can make to change the culture of Washington, D.C. is pass a balanced budget amendment to the United States Constitution to strip the power away from Congress to spend money that we don't have. Lastly, I'm on the Small Business Committee. Having spent 17 years as a Colorado small business owner, we learned how to balance a budget, meet a payroll, and to run an organization efficiently enough to make a profit. Those skills are needed in the Congress. But Obamacare is hurting jobs, it's hurting American business. When this policy says that if you have 50 or more employees that are calculated at 30 hours or more a week, that the full burden of Obamacare is going to come down on the employers, to where if they can't afford a federally approved health care plan, that they will be fined, have an IRS penalty of $2,000 an employee per year. That is a job killer. And what employers are telling me is if they're under 50, they're staying under 50. And if they're over 50, they're figuring out how to get under 50. At the very time that the American people want jobs, Obamacare is a job killer. If the president thinks that the employer mandate is bad enough that it has to be deferred till after the 2014 election, then it's bad enough to where it must be repealed along with the rest of it. Now, I know that some of you might watch TV every now and then, and might see there's ads running against me right now by radical environmental Washington, D.C. based group on climate change. And they're doing it on behalf of my opponent. And the reason why they're doing it is because, I believe that certainly climate change is real. It's existed throughout time. What's debatable is how much man's activity influences it. And we have to do everything we can to bring down carbon. We know that. It's bad for the environment. But we have to do it in a responsible way that is balanced between the needs of this economy and our environmental concerns. We can do a balanced approach. But if you look at the website of this organization, it is not a balanced approach. They instead of putting a tax on carbon, which they want, to raise the energy prices and punish middle-class families, we need to increase the price of carbon. They want a tax on carbon, and my opponent will give it to him if he's elected. Handpicked by Nancy Pelosi, who was here last week campaigning for him. Their goal is, why they recruited him, is because they want President Obama's last 2 years to look like his first 2 years, where there was no bipartisanship, where bills like Obamacare and cap and trade were run through the House of Representatives. The goal is to take back the House. We need to stop them. This race is about freedom. It is about preserving the free enterprise system. And it is about keeping America from descending into a European social welfare state, because it hasn't worked for them. It's not going to work for us. God bless you. I need your help. Thank you.